Aloha and welcome to Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock on thinktechhawaii.com. You could go to thinktechhawaii.com and find the schedule for all of our shows during the week, including Business in Hawaii. Business in Hawaii is a show about positive stories of business in Hawaii. We've all heard the negatives. What we want to hear now, at least on this show, are the positives, people who have made it work. We've got a new industry coming into town. For some people, maybe not so new, but as far as legitimate businesses are concerned, it's a new industry. I've got Chris Garth from the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance here today. He's going to be talking a little bit about the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance and how it's bringing a new industry together and getting collaboration and getting people to start talking. So welcome, Chris. Glad you could make it today.
Hey, Reg, thanks so much. It's an honor. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's good to have you here. Now, we've had Steve Pingree on the show before, and he's talked a little bit about some of the compliance issues and some of the things going on in the industry. And so we know there's some challenges, but the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance is addressing some of that and trying to bring people together and begin a conversation. And you're heading that up. But let me ask you, before we get into that, what's your background? What's your history? Have you been in Hawaii for a while?
I've been here for about 12 years. I'm Chinese, Hawaiian, Caucasian, but I grew up in North Carolina.
So you're one of these hapahaole kind of guys.
Full on hapahaole.
Okay.
My Hawaiian's not so good, neither is my pidgin, but my southern drawl is on point.
That's right. So you came from the South.
I did. I grew up in the South, born and raised, educated in the South. I came over here for some summer classes at University of Hawaii and a little bit of grad school in the urban and regional planning department. But after finding that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do and wandering around the globe for a little bit, chasing surfing and the Association of Surfing Professionals, made my way back here, got back into local politics.
And when was that, Chris? Came back when?
I came back to Hawaii in 2012, so only about 4 years ago. I took a little bit less than a year off just to travel around and see what else was out there.
You're very lucky to be able to do that.
I was. Fortunately, I have a good family that supported me. I wouldn't say monetarily, but at least in essence, they supported my decision to leave my profession or the trade of politics at the city council for that time and pursue whatever dreams were out there.
So were you involved with the politics and city council here in Hawaii?
I was with Council Chair Todd Poe's office for about 5 years. We were in the development of the rail program.
Oh, the rail.
The rail program. It's quite a touchy subject at the moment. But I was the constituent liaison going out into the field, neighborhood, board meetings, and as that community liaison, taking all of the concerns and complaints and victories of the community and bringing them to the city council. And then conversely, taking all of the news from the city council out to our constituency.
So controversy is not new to you.
No, by no means. And this is certainly an appropriate avenue to fill, blending whatever controversy you may find or the general public may find with the industry and taking that into consideration and trying to calm it down, make us remove the stigma, if you will, and blending culture and promise into something that can be delivered to the public.
And sometimes that just requires a little bit of outreach and awareness and having hopefully people with open minds being able to look at things, fairly.
It does.
But you came back in 2012, and did you jump right into this, or did you do something prior?
I was a corporate lobbyist before. I was with a bigger outfit, and because I'm a man of ethics, and often that means doing what I want to do rather than what I'm told. My contract with my firm was not renewed, and I was asked to not come in any longer.
Oh, those ethics will get you in trouble every time.
I tell you. But here we are. I was shortly after that, I was approached by a couple of other lobbyists that recognized the value and skill set that I had acquired from my previous firm, and they asked if I could start a trade association. And fortunately for me, the principals at my old firm were very good at running trade associations. They were involved in the development of a couple local chapters that are affiliates of the Chamber of Commerce. And I was able to take what I learned there and move forward with this idea. And the idea was we need a trade association for the new medical marijuana industry that will soon come to Hawaii. And here we are, almost a year later, and the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance is up and running. Legislatively, we're doing exactly what we wanted to do. Public outreach, we're doing what we want to do. Membership drive, we're getting there. We're doing what we want to do. All of the stars have aligned, but certainly with a lot of very hard work.
Well, and you bring a lot of experience with you, the dealing with the controversy, knowing the issues, working with the legislature.
Yes, sir.
You know, so you had an opportunity to do some of this before, and that transitions over to what you're doing now.
It does, and I couldn't be more fortunate with the way that this more or less fell into my lap. And I do recognize that there are certain skill sets that are necessary for ushering this in appropriately. It's a very sensitive subject, and we face a lot of opposition to some of those people that don't necessarily have the most open minds, but even those who are open-minded might be skeptical as to the intentions of the industry or the direction that it could go. And we're just taking our time and having those conversations one at a time to ensure that we're here to stay, but our intentions, our integrity are sound, that we're not here to make a quick buck, that the industry can go a number of different ways, but we hope to usher it in, again, appropriately to ensure that Hawaii prevails. The people of Hawaii get what they need, the patients get what they need, and the industry can deliver those goods and services to the people of Hawaii.
Right. Well, it's really giving birth to a whole new industry, in a sense, and certainly one that's going to be highly regulated. So there's going to be some interesting challenges along the way. But with your legislative background, you'll be able to stay involved with that and help guide and hopefully direct some of this. Because sometimes laws are made without fully understanding all the ramifications. You know, and I'll refer back to the Affordable Care Act. When that was launched, that went through a number of revisions and a lot of interpretations and a lot of new regulations were coming out to make it work. I would imagine something comparable is going to happen with our laws here related to medical marijuana.
Absolutely. The regulatory scheme that's been set up it's been dicey. We don't really know. Of course, establishing the regulations before the industry is tricky. And then conversely, establishing the industry before the regulations can be very detrimental to all of the players involved. What makes it more difficult for Hawaii or any of the states that are involved in medical marijuana or an adult use recreational marijuana trade is that there is no federal regulation. There's no overarching policy making or decision making or even enforcement group that can say, no, you're doing this wrong. You need to adhere to this. The only thing that we've gotten is marijuana is illegal. It is a Schedule I controlled substance, and you're really taking a supreme risk involving yourself in it. We have some assurances from the state, but when we get into the actual regulation of this industry, they're shooting at too many moving targets all at the same time.
But we do have some models that we can maybe follow and rely on and provide some guidance, for example, in Colorado and maybe Oregon or Washington and some other states.
Absolutely, and there's some great parallels with all of those states as well as Rhode Island and Arizona and some of the others to come on. And you could almost say that we are the Facebook to MySpace. MySpace was kind of the big social network early on, and then Facebook comes along and changed some things, tweaked it, made it a little bit better, and here we are in the age of, well, now Instagram and Twitter and whatever else is going on. But certainly we've had the path paved more or less from a regulatory perspective as to what should work. And our department has been I'll say this, for all the scrutiny that the department has been under for unfortunately missing their last delay,
You're talking
or, I'm
about
sorry,
the Department of Health.
the Department of Health, yes, for missing their last deadline, which was announcing the 8 licensees on April 15th. They've done an incredible job of beating most of the deadlines that were set by the statute, getting interim administrative rules out ahead of schedule, selecting a panel and announcing it, which they weren't even necessarily supposed to do. But for the sake of transparency, the Department of Health has done a great job, and all we can do is commend them.
Well, Dr. Pressler is a very competent person. I've worked with her at the Chamber of Commerce, and I've known her for a few years.
Yes, sir.
And I know she's on top of things, and she runs a pretty tight ship. So hopefully she can get her hands around all this, and I know it's a big bureaucracy and there's a lot of moving parts. But if anybody's up to the task, I would assume Dr. Pressler is.
I would assume that Dr. Pressler is up to the task. Now, whether or not she's was initially willing to, is kind of a different story. From a medical perspective, I don't know that she would actually recognize the medicinal benefits of marijuana. But her job as the Director of Health provides that she has to oversee this new institution. And I'm sure that she will approach it from a very appropriate bureaucratic perspective, which is how this industry needs to be regulated. You can't have too much favoritism going into this, and you can't have the bias assuming that this is necessarily beneficial for all walks of life, nor on the opposite side of the coin can you say that this is not appropriate. But I think that she will certainly do her best. And the team that she's chosen, Peggy Leong, has been phenomenal.
Very good. Now, I'm not a clinician, so I can't really speak to this, although I do have a little bit of healthcare background. But it was my understanding that there's been some pretty solid documentation in some of the benefits of medical marijuana, particularly for cancer patients and others that are, experiencing some sort of disease.
Yeah, that's accurate to a point, until the FDA comes out and says
And blesses it.
And beyond that, until it moves away from a Schedule 1 controlled substance to a 2 or a 3 or higher or lower, depending on how you approach the scale. Actual government funding for these research projects isn't available. And we actually end up sending our money for research to Israel. And we've been doing it for the last 50 years.
And Israel's got a very sophisticated system over there, from what I understand.
They do, they certainly do.
We need to take a quick break. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Israel when we come back and what their model is and how far ahead they are.
Sure.
From the United States. And then I want to learn a little bit more about the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance. So
We can do that.
We'll take a short break. This is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We're here with Chris Garth from the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance. We're talking about the medical marijuana industry in Hawaii. We'll be right back in about a minute.
Aloha, my name is Carl Campagna. I'm the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers. You can see our show every Wednesday at noon at 12 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, as well as visiting YouTube and finding the link for the show there. The show is also aired on OC16. We look forward to seeing you on the show. We have many wonderful guests, including Joan Husted, Corey Rosenlee, where we talk about the very important issues of education for our keiki. We look forward to seeing you there. Mahalo.
Aloha, this is Maria Mera, and I'm here to invite you to my bilingual show, Viva Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii, every other Monday at 3 p.m. We're here to inform, motivate, and entertain you. Join us. Hola, soy María Mera y estoy aquí para invitaros a mi show bilingüe Viva Hawaii en Think Tech Hawaii cada 2 lunes a las 3 de la tarde. Estamos aquí para informaros, motivaros y entreteneros. Apuntaros.
Welcome back. This is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We're here with the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance. and Chris Garth. My apologies, I get hung up on the HDA thing, which we don't want to go into. We are available for call-ins at 415-871-2474. So if anybody has a question, please call in and you'll go through the system and you'll get to us and we can hopefully answer your question. But Chris, we were just getting into a discussion on Israel and their industry, and I guess they've had this for quite a while.
They have. It's well vetted, and of course, any of the ancient texts that came out of Israel recognize the medicinal properties, or at least the incorporation of cannabis. So for thousands of years, they've had cannabis involved in their culture. But the reason that Israel works so well, or parallels to Hawaii's soon-to-be medical marijuana program, is because throughout the duration of their program, they've had 8 licensed medical manufacturing facilities and retailers, which is ultimately what we'll end up with. And the population that they service is about the same of the projected numbers that we'll end up serving. So there are some really good models within the individual businesses, the 8 licensees, that we can look at for either success stories or unfortunate near failures. And a lot of that comes from taking the program of each license and expanding it beyond just the delivery of medicine to a patient. It goes into clinical research, and because the government backs this kind of research.
Which means they fund it.
They fund it, exactly. They're able to expand, and they're able to trademark their product, and they're able to get it out to, well, I'll say this, out of the country, if you will.
So they're an exporter.
Of sorts, absolutely. And not only of product, but of information and of research. And
No, I think before we get into the dispensary alliance piece,
yes, sir.
I think it'd be important for the audience, if they don't know this already, to understand that the product that we're talking about can take a lot of different forms. It's not necessarily something that you smoke.
Correct. And it's not necessarily something that you smoke to just get high, if you will. It's something that is necessary for pain management and for providing an appetite. It helps people sleep and it helps people deal with PTSD.
And this can be in a form of pills.
Correct. Pills, lozenge, of course, edibles. Everybody knows about brownies, but beyond that, gummies in a vitamin gummy form, even so much as a vaporized or nebulized product, and transdermal patches. And surprisingly, there are even suppositories for this.
And part of, I guess the side effects is not necessarily getting that buzz or that high. Some of this has really no effect other than to address the symptoms of not being hungry or nausea.
Exactly.
What have you. So it's not one of the effects is not necessarily getting high from it. That's
Yeah, that's true. One of the effects is not getting high, and so much to the point where you can take some of these substances and you will feel absolutely no psychotropic effects. It's just pain relief, or all of a sudden you have an appetite, or loss of nausea. And those strains are available, and those products are available already, and they're called CBD, which stands for cannabinoid, working in effect with the endocannabinoid system within your body, which was discovered in Israel about 40 years ago.
See, and that's the point that I'm trying to get to, is that with Israel doing some of this research that is funded by the government, they've been able to make great strides in being able to develop a product without this effect of getting a buzz, but addresses the symptoms of what people are experiencing. And so it's no different than any other drug that they might be taking.
That's true. That's true. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is still an illicit trade of marijuana in Israel, anywhere between 255,000 to 150,000 people are involved in the illicit trade of or use of marijuana, which is realistic, but at the same time, the stigma does not exist, and the penalty for possession or use is not nearly as severe as what we face in the United States.
I can't help but kind of see a similarity in a way with alcohol. I mean, alcohol is legal.
Mhm.
You can drink it, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have people abusing it.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and so I see a parallel there.
Mhm.
You know, so that's okay. Well, you're not remiss in mentioning you brought it up, so that's good. So what is there any other parallels? I mean, Israel's, I guess, population-wise comparable. They've got a model that's similar. They've got, you know, government-funded research. I mean, it sounds like that's a good model for the United States to take a look at, not just Hawaii, but something to replicate countrywide.
Sure. I mean, considering that the federal government has spent $1 million a year for the last 50 years providing them with the funding to launch this platform, you'd think that the United States would want to keep some of
Wait a
that
minute,
money
let me
in.
make sure I want to understand this.
Okay.
So, although the drug's illegal in the United States, and it's not research in the United States, they are funding research offshore.
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
That information is readily available on our website
Interesting, I guess.
in a white paper that we produced.
Ethics can be defined by the beholder, I guess. You know,
Yes, it is. But it's an unfortunate situation, but here we are, 2016, and we're moving forward. 23 states now recognize have a legitimate medical marijuana program, and that is not just for CBD oils or tinctures. If you consider CBD programs, there are 41 states and territories, so we're already well over half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than 2/3.
Indeed. So we're moving forward. And
Is there a national organization that helps coordinate? And
There are a
collaborate with?
couple of national organizations. There's NORML, there's the Marijuana Policy Program, then there are national groups such as the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance, the NCIA, which is the National Cannabis Industry Association. And they all have a similar agenda, kind of different objectives and different components and different membership for the most part, but some of it crosses over. But the idea is generally to help the industry move forward while removing the unnecessary burden of the stigma that is applied to all stakeholders or those who engage in the industry.
Let's use that as a segue to get into the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance.
Okay.
Something that you've set up. Now, how long has this organization been around?
The Hawaii Dispensary Alliance was formed on July 17th, 2015. So we're coming up on our 1-year mark.
Okay. And what is the mission, the goal? What do you guys do?
We are the trade association for the legitimate cannabis industry in Hawaii. And what that entails is providing industry-specific information, legislative services, and then a very complex industrial network for all of the shareholders and stakeholders involved in the development of this industry.
Now, this industrial network is within Hawaii or nationwide?
It has nationwide and even worldwide implications, considering the fact that for the 59 applicants that submitted 66 applications, there are members of some of those applicant teams that are in Canada, in Japan, in Germany, Australia, China, and then of course...
Anybody from Israel?
Not directly tied to Israel. However, there are some groups some members of some groups that have done some work with those Israeli teams.
Very good. And so you've got this big membership organization here, and you've got a whole team helping you with this?
Not quite. We have a good membership base, I'll say. We're about 45 groups or members strong.
Wow.
And those could be anyone the membership ranges from patient level all the way up to dispensary applicant.
Oh, so you can have individuals as well as businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I see.
We're in creating this trade association, we recognize that there's no benefit in providing a service to only the dispensaries. And in order to create an industry, we need to fill the void between the dispensaries and the patients. And beyond that, we need to broaden the patient base. So for a dispensary to get medicine to a patient, someone has to build the dispensary. Someone has to provide the land for the dispensary. Someone has to provide the machinery within the grow facility, whether it be light or trimming or hydration or HVAC, to the dispensary. We'll have 8 licensees, and each license is allowed to have 2 grow facilities or manufacturing facilities. So all of a sudden you have 16 facilities statewide. For
That have to be built, maintained. There's security elements to this.
Exactly.
Maintenance.
You need a contractor, you need a plumber, you need an electrician, you need someone to do drywall. Beyond that, you need an architect, you need an interior designer, you need a planner, you need someone to grade the land. Then you need waste removal. It doesn't end. And that's where we have, as the dispensary is on the top and a more broad patient base is defined or developed, in the middle, we have all of these ancillary services that can directly influence the quality of medicine and the expediency with which the medicine is developed and provided to that patient base. And that's where you have that complex industrial network.
There you go. So, you know, in layman's terms, I see an iceberg, and I see the top of the iceberg being the licensees that are out there growing and distributing,
Yes, sir.
dispensing. But then there's all of this support that's going to have to be out there to help them, all the infrastructure in place to help them, you know, execute that mission, that job. So there's a huge potential industry out there. Now, we get, what, 8 licenses in the first round?
Yes, sir.
And then there's going to be some additional licenses later.
That's correct. It looks like October 2017, the Ledge and the Department of Health will go in and assess are they properly serviced or are they being underserved. And with that report, or with whatever the response is, they will determine whether or not we should have more licenses available in the next round. And then that will set the precedence for how we proceed from there on.
Okay, but there's no preset number for that.
Correct. There's no preset number. However, the number of licenses cannot exceed 1 per every 500 patients. So right now we're at around 14,000 patients, probably getting closer to 15,000.
So there's potential, maybe great potential for growth.
There
in the
is,
years ahead.
there is.
Interesting.
And I'll say this, right now we're in what's considered a vertically integrated program, where if you're going to grow it, you have to sell it. If you're going to sell it, you have to grow it. And it's all siloed within that one license, that one organization.
Easier to control that way from a bureaucratic
It is,
standpoint.
and it makes sense.
But we got to take another break.
Sure.
Yeah, and we'll be back in just 1 minute. But this is Reg Baker, Business in Hawaii. I'm here with Chris Garth. We're talking about the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance in Hawaii for the medical marijuana industry. So we'll be back in about 60 seconds.
You're watching Hawaii, exploring the world, living in, recognizing the changes around us, and looking into the future of our lives together in these islands. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, and I host Condo Insider. We talk about issues facing the condo association throughout Hawaii and talk about solutions. When you think about it, about 1/3 of our population lives in some form of common interest real estate. We broadcast every Thursday at 3 p.m. Please tune in, and thank you. Aloha.
Aloha, namaskar, and hello. I am Anu Hittel, and I host a show on climate change. It's called Climate Change Beyond Outrage, and in it, we go beyond outrage to look at solutions to global climate problems facing people, nations, and the world. Join me every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha, namaskar, and goodbye.
Welcome back. This is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. I'm here with Chris Garth. We're talking about the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance, and we're talking about the industry and the potential for that industry, which seems to be a lot bigger than I think most people expect it to be. So we've got this iceberg, and the top of it is basically the licensed providers of this service or product, and then under it is all this infrastructure supporting this entire industry. And we're going to have something like this on every island.
We will. Every county will have, all 4 counties will have a different set of licensees. Kauai County will have 1 license, so 2 retail dispensaries and then 2 grow facilities. Honolulu, City and County of Honolulu will have 3 licenses, so we'll have 6 and 6. And then Maui and Big Island counties will each have 2 licensees. So 32 facilities all in all.
And there's not going to be a lot of, I guess for the licensees, they're pretty much siloed on those islands.
They are.
But the infrastructure to support them can be less siloed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what that means to me is that the potential market, at least initially, could be much bigger for the ancillary services than it would be for the licensees.
The implications are tremendous. Everyone can get involved, from printers to realtors to, we already touched on the physical build out of these places.
Well, you got attorneys for the compliance
Exactly.
issues. I mean, this industry, at least for a while and maybe for a long time, is going to be under a microscope. People are going to be watching very closely that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and they're going to be maybe biased and looking for a violation. So you
Sure.
got to really be on top of this.
You should, but let's also say that as everyone really continues to scrutinize what we're doing, we'll be held to a very high standard, which allows us to get out there, to put our best foot forward. It's when you look at the applicants, you're not seeing your Cheech and Chong applicants. You're seeing millionaires, viable, real supporters of the community, pillars of the community that are out there putting their best foot forward, wanting to invest in the community. And when you have the likes of Hank Rogers or even Bill Jarvis getting out there, it's real, it's honest, and their intentions are not to dupe anybody. And starting out, as you said earlier, with 8 licensees, really, it really lends itself to higher.
Now, some of these people need to have some money to get into this business. I mean, this isn't chump change. I mean,
It's not. So $1.2 million in liquid assets or in escrow.
that's got to be on deposit for a period of time before they can even apply for the
90
license.
days prior to the application.
I don't know very many people that's going to have $1.2 million just sitting
Just
in
sitting
the bank.
there, right? So that was one of the concerns, and it's something that we face often is, oh, this is an elitist group. Only those who have so much money can be involved as players. But the reality is we're not talking about 8 licenses again. We're talking about, in this case, we're talking about the delivery of medicine, the production of medicine and the delivery of medicine. And that medicine has to be safe, it has to be secure, it has to be accounted for. You can't have it divert into the black market. And when I want my medicine, when I take an Advil, I want to make sure that it's Advil, that I get it from the same store, that it's always going to be available.
Consistent.
Consistency
Yeah.
and safety of product. I want someone to be held accountable if it turns out to be something other than Advil.
I know we talked, or we touched on perceptions a little bit earlier. And the perception is, for some people, this is a hobby, it's not a serious business. Well, when you've got to have $1.2 million sitting in cash in the bank, that's a serious business.
Sure.
And people are going to be serious about investing that and to making this work, knowing that it's a risky endeavor, but one that they're serious about moving forward on. This isn't your old mom and pop backyard growing operation anymore. Actually, they're starting to look like you a little bit with the vest and the tie and the clean cut. I mean, this is serious business.
It is. And let's just say that the clean cut is not necessarily by design, it's more genetics. But
I mean, I was born like this.
But you're right. First impressions are everything. And when I go as a registered lobbyist to the state capitol, I can't show up as a slob. I can't show up representing these interests in poor light. I have to go in and I have to speak eloquently and I have to understand all of the terms and implications that we have to deal with or that are before the legislators.
I think that's going to be important for, if not all, at least most of the players in this industry, because whether you like it or not, and you can debate that forever, the fact is that there is a perception that has to be addressed at some point. And I think the more professional people can act and appear and present themselves, the more legitimate and more serious people are going to take the industry and learn to accept it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly where we are and what we're trying to do, what the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance is trying to do. We recognize the need to deliver, and so far, I think we've been very well received by all parties.
Well, I just attended an event that you had, a little kickoff event. You had a lot of people there. We had some of the elected officials there, some of the senior ranking folks from the ledge. It was a very well done event, and I was impressed. It was a very good job, and so you set this up, and it seems to be working pretty well for you.
I think so, and again, to say that you attended is, well, selling yourself a little bit short. You attended and then some. So thank you for coming, and thank you for the very kind words now, but also the very kind words that you provided to our audience. But even throwing that event with a large portion of the 59 applicants and their teams in the audience, as well as a number of the bigger ancillary players in the audience, was hard to pull off. It took a lot of me calling them and emailing them and sending stuff to their physical addresses and then following up with an email and a call. And we're not trying to fly under the radar, and we are trying to not necessarily trumpet ourselves, but announce that we're providing viable solutions into creating a cohesive voice for this industry. And I think simply by the fact that so many of them showed up and walked away with a good understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and the direction that we see as being appropriate, when they leave with a positive attitude towards that and receive that well, I think that we've started to do our job.
You are, and maybe in some respects you're preaching to the choir, but that's where you got to start.
That's true.
And I don't know what the final number was, but it appeared to be several hundred people there. There was a lot of engagement, a lot of discussion. We talked about collaboration, working together. I think there was for the majority of people, they acknowledged that there was a perception and there was an opportunity, and they needed to work together to take advantage of the opportunity and to correct the perceptions. It was an interesting event that was very positive, and congratulations to
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, it was, I mean, you could almost consider it to be something like a chamber event. However, we weren't talking about general business. We were talking about a more specific business, one that unfortunately is considered a little bit more illicit. But in the next couple of years, we will be recognized as a huge contributor to public health and to public tax revenue. the state will be gladly accepting our money.
So I'm just curious, have you done any estimates as to what the potential tax revenue might be for the state at some point?
That will be in our next white paper.
Okay.
So something to look forward to.
Well, if you could do us all a favor, and please try to generate about $7 billion, because we got this great big rail thing out here that's got to be paid for, and we're getting tired of writing all these checks, to pay for it.
That's a good way to come full circle, considering that I helped sell the rail.
So it was your fault.
So you can reach me at, no, just kidding. I think this is going to be a wonderful benefit, again, for public health and for the general status of our state. Everything from education to the highway system to even dealing with the rail could potentially be righted or corrected by some of the revenue or a lot of the revenue that this industry brings in.
Because this, from some of the numbers that I've been seeing, this has the potential of being a large dollar industry. And I can't help but think that we need that in Hawaii right now. I mean, with the visitor industry is still there, it's strong. Military is still there, but maybe not quite as strong. Our agriculture has been kind of wobbly here recently, and we need something to come up and kind of replace that.
So here we have a really interesting approach where we talk about tourism and agriculture. At some point in 2018, we will have reciprocation.
What does that mean?
That means that if you have a medical marijuana certification, prescription, or card from another state, you'll be able to come to Hawaii and we can track your purchases and validate your involvement in the program. And you can purchase marijuana over here for your medicine.
So people from Israel can come over and buy?
People from Israel, people from California, people from Colorado, people from Rhode Island, anywhere could come over here by 2018 and participate. So all of a sudden, the hospitality industry starts to piggyback on the success of this industry, or at least integrate themselves or align themselves with us.
And again, to make sure that the message is clear, we're not talking about people buying these joints and smoking and creating all that. We're talking about medical use in tablet or other form that can be ingested that is for medical purposes.
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about turning Waikiki into a Cheech and Chong type of Disneyland or something.
By no means. But consider, people go to South Korea and Thailand for surgeries, right?
All the time.
All the time. Well, why not come to Hawaii if you're suffering from some kind of cancer, where all of a sudden in the last 3 years, Hawaii, put ourselves in 2018, the last 3 years, Hawaii has undergone a boom for cancer research, for medical marijuana research. You're in a wonderful place, in a very hospitable place. People are taking care of you while you're getting great medicine and participating in wonderful research.
Great health care.
Exactly.
And I wish we had more time, but we're going to have to wrap up with that. But having Hawaii participate in that medical tourism industry, which is worldwide huge, so layer that on top of this medical marijuana industry, you've got a potential that is phenomenal here.
Incredibly so.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. This was Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We had a very interesting conversation with Chris Garth with the Hawaii Dispensary Alliance. Looks like we've got a lot to look forward to, and we might have to be getting some updates here in the next few months to see where we're at and how it's all working. So thank you. We broadcast live every Thursday from 2 to 3 o'clock at the studios in Think Tech Hawaii in the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. Glad you could make it today, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.